Welcome, the anointed ones. Some people will trade diamonds for dust and still wonder why their hands are empty. It's a wild truth, but here's a fact. Studies show that human beings are wired to regret missed opportunities more than their actual mistakes. Funny, isn't it? Yet it makes perfect sense. When someone betrays a rare gem of a person for something cheap and nasty, regret doesn't just knock on their door. It moves in, unpacks its bags, and throws a house party. And here's the twist. You were the blessing they didn't value. They misjudged your worth, gambled on temporary thrills, and lost out on a masterpiece while clinging to a mess. But life? Oh, it's got a wicked sense of humor. Now they're left haunted by the memory of what they did, and who they did it to. Buckle up. This isn't just a story of betrayal. It's a reckoning. At number 1, they mistook your kindness for weakness. They got it all wrong. They saw your kindness and thought it meant weakness. When you showed patience, they assumed it was because you didn't know better. When you forgave, they mistook it for desperation. But what they never understood is that your kindness was a choice, not a flaw. It was rooted in strength, the kind that only comes from surviving battles they can't even comprehend. The truth is, being soft in a world that celebrates hardness takes courage. It's easier to build walls, to be cold, to meet every insult with fire, but you chose differently. You chose to stay human. And they didn't know what to do with that. So instead, they played games, thinking you'd always be there, thinking you'd tolerate disrespect because that's just who you are. But that's where they messed up. See, kindness has boundaries too. And when they crossed those lines, they didn't just lose your loyalty. They lost access to the rare peace that only people like you can bring. They never realized how much you carried for them, how much your presence made their lives better without them even noticing. Until you were gone. Now they see it. The conversations that used to calm their storms are gone. The understanding they took for granted has vanished. They're left trying to fill a void they didn't even know existed until you walked away. And here's the irony. They're learning the hard way that finding someone with your heart isn't just rare, it's damn near impossible. And that's the price of mistaking kindness for weakness. They gambled thinking you'd stay no matter what, but they didn't just lose the game, they lost the prize. You, number 2, they wanted you to dim so they could shine. They couldn't stand your light. It wasn't that you were doing anything wrong, you were just being yourself, shining without even trying. And that made them uncomfortable. Every room you walked into, you brought a certain energy that couldn't be ignored. People noticed you, respected you, even admired you. And instead of seeing that as a reason to stand beside you and rise, they saw it as a threat. So they did what insecure people always do. They tried to dim your light, subtle digs, backhanded compliments, and those little attempts to make you question yourself. All because your shine reminded them of everything they weren't ready to face about themselves. They wanted you smaller, quieter, easier to control, anything that wouldn't challenge their fragile sense of self. But here's the thing, real light can't be dimmed, not by gossip, not by jealousy, and definitely not by people who are too insecure to embrace their own potential. You kept glowing, and that only made them more bitter. Eventually, they betrayed you, thinking they could rise without you. They believed cutting you out would elevate them, but it didn't. Instead, it exposed just how small they were without your presence. Now, they're stuck in the same darkness they tried to push you into. They're realizing that your light didn't just make you better, it made everything around you better, including them. But they chose the path of insecurity, and that choice cost them more than they ever imagined. Because here's the truth. They'll never outshine someone who wasn't competing with them in the first place, and that's the part that burns the most. Number 3, they thought short-term wins would last forever. They wanted quick wins. They bet on what was easy, flashy, and right in front of them, thinking it was the smarter move. You were building something real, slow, steady, and meaningful, but they didn't have the patience to see it. They wanted instant gratification, the kind of rush that fades as fast as it arrives. So they chose shortcuts and temporary thrills, believing they'd come out on top. What they failed to understand is that the best things in life take time. Building a legacy, creating real success, and nurturing genuine connections don't happen overnight. But they weren't thinking long-term. They wanted results now, even if it meant throwing away something priceless. They couldn't see your value because it wasn't wrapped in immediate rewards. You were the investment they weren't wise enough to make. Now here's the twist. Those quick wins they chased are gone. The applause died down. The shiny distractions lost their sparkle. And while they're standing there wondering where it all went, you're thriving in what you built with intention and purpose. They didn't just lose you, they lost out on a future that would have elevated them beyond what they could even imagine. The worst part for them? Watching you win without shortcuts. Seeing you flourish because you did it right when they didn't have the vision to wait for it. That's the kind of regret that lingers, knowing they bet on the wrong thing and lost everything worth having. And deep down, they know they can never rewind time to fix that choice. That's a bitter pill they have to swallow. Number 4. Betraying you cost them their spiritual alignment. There's a weight to betrayal that goes beyond hurt feelings and broken trust. It messes with something deeper, the spiritual alignment of a person. See, when someone betrays a person with a pure heart, they don't just lose the relationship, they lose access to the divine blessings that come with being connected to that person. And those blessings aren't random, they're intentional. You weren't just in their life by chance. You were placed there for a reason, a source of peace, wisdom, and growth. But they were too blinded by ego, jealousy, or greed to see it. They didn't realize that your presence was part of their spiritual protection, a covering that shielded them from storms they didn't even know were coming. So when they chose betrayal, they didn't just walk away from you, they walked out of alignment with the path that was meant to elevate them. And here's the thing about karma, it doesn't forget addresses. Disloyalty carries consequences and they always come due. Suddenly, doors that used to swing open for them are locked. Opportunities slip through their fingers. Peace becomes hard to find. It's not punishment, it's just spiritual cause and effect. When you betray someone with divine favor, you lose access to that favor, period. And no matter how hard they try to fix things on the surface, life won't fully align for them until they confront the root of their disloyalty. Now they watch from a distance as you continue to rise, protected and guided by the very favor they threw away. And that's the ultimate regret, knowing they had something priceless, but chose chaos instead. Some losses aren't just personal, they're spiritual, and that's a price far too heavy to pay. Number 5. They didn't understand the assignment. You were their test. Not every connection in life is random. Some people cross your path because they're meant to be part of your growth. And sometimes you're meant to be part of theirs. You were that person for them. The assignment was simple. Appreciate, respect, and grow with the blessing they were given. But they failed miserably. They let ego, selfishness, and short-sightedness cloud their judgment. And instead of elevating with you, they betrayed you. What they didn't realize is that you were their test. Life presented them with a rare opportunity, someone who could bring peace, wisdom, and a deeper purpose into their journey. But instead of seeing you as a blessing, they treated you like an obstacle or an afterthought. And life doesn't reward people who fail to recognize divine opportunities. Their betrayal didn't just break the connection. It turned what was meant to be a beautiful chapter into a hard, bitter lesson. Now they're left grappling with the consequences of their actions. They see you thriving, growing, and evolving without them, while they're stuck trying to piece together a path that no longer makes sense. The hardest part for them is knowing they had the answer right in front of them, and they threw it away. That regret hits different when you realize you were trusted with a blessing and failed the test. Life has a way of making sure people learn, though, even if it's the hard way. And that's exactly what they're facing now. A long, painful lesson that could have been a beautiful elevation if only they'd understood the assignment. Number 6. They traded legacy for momentary lust. Some choices echo far beyond the moment they're made. Betraying someone with a rare purpose isn't just a personal misstep. It's a generational loss. That's what they didn't understand when they chose temporary satisfaction over something meaningful. They weren't just walking away from you. They were walking away from a legacy that could have shaped their future and the future of those connected to them. They went after lust, the thrill of instant gratification, the rush that fades as quickly as it comes. Lust doesn't build, it only consumes. And when it's done, it leaves nothing but ashes. They traded a meaningful connection for a hollow pursuit, thinking it was a win. But now they're left standing in the aftermath, realizing they lost far more than they ever gained. Being connected to someone with purpose isn't just about love or loyalty, it's about alignment. When you're in the presence of someone with a divine calling, blessings flow. Generations are impacted, foundations are built, but they weren't thinking about foundations, they were thinking about fleeting desires. They chose what was easy and cheap, and in doing so, they forfeited access to something eternal. The sting of that decision is real now. They see you building, thriving, and moving with a purpose they can't touch. And they're stuck wondering what could have been if they'd chosen differently. That's the thing about legacy. It doesn't wait for people who can't see its value. And once it's gone, there are no shortcuts to getting it back. They made their choice. Unfortunately for them, it wasn't just a bad decision. It was the one that robbed them of meaning, stability, and a future worth being proud of. Now that's a loss they'll never outrun. Number 7, you were their mirror, and they couldn't handle the reflection. Some people think they want honesty, but what they really want is comfort. You didn't come into their life to sugarcoat things or play along with their illusions. You showed up as your real, unfiltered self, authentic, grounded, and unapologetically true. And that's where the problem started, because your presence didn't just inspire them, it exposed them. You were a mirror, and mirrors don't lie. They couldn't hide behind facades or distractions when you were around. Your confidence highlighted their doubts. Your kindness exposed their bitterness. Your growth made their stagnation painfully obvious. And instead of using that reflection to evolve, they chose to resent you for it. It wasn't personal, even though it felt that way. People don't attack what they hate. They attack what reveals what they hate about themselves. And that's exactly what you did, just by being you. You didn't have to point out their insecurities. Your existence was enough to make them uncomfortable. So they fought back. Maybe it was through gossip, betrayal, or subtle attempts to tear you down. But their real battle wasn't with you. It was with their own reflection. What they failed to understand is that the mirror wasn't their enemy. It was their opportunity to grow. You were never there to judge them. You were there to show them what was possible. But they weren't ready for that truth, and instead of becoming better, they became bitter. Now they're stuck with the same insecurities they refuse to confront while you've moved on, stronger and wiser. That's the irony. They tried to break the mirror, but all they did was shatter their own chance at becoming something greater. Number 8, you were the blueprint. They couldn't see. You were the original, the blueprint for something rare and extraordinary. But they couldn't see it because they were too focused on what was easy to grasp, simple and familiar. They weren't ready to appreciate the complexity, depth, and brilliance of who you were. Instead, they went for something more basic, something that required less effort to understand and less vision to value. They thought they made a smart move, but here's the catch. Shortcuts never lead to greatness. What they chose might have been more convenient, but it lacked substance. And deep down, they're starting to realize that. Now they're out there chasing hollow imitations of what you naturally embodied. They search for your confidence, your grace, your creativity, but all they find are watered-down versions that never quite measure up. The irony is sharp. They discarded what was authentic and timeless for something trendy and fleeting. They didn't just lose you. They lost the opportunity to build something meaningful alongside you. You were the foundation they didn't recognize, and now they're trying to build a house without blueprints. Nothing fits, nothing stands, and nothing compares. And here's what stings them the most. They can't replicate you. People with real purpose, unique energy, and visionary souls can't be copied. That's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. They had the original and didn't know how to value it. Now they're left with a bitter truth. They fumbled something priceless, And while they try to piece together a version of what you already mastered, you're miles ahead, living in the fulfillment they never had the foresight to see. Number 9. They bet against the wrong person. They thought they were making a smart play, betting against you like you were some underdog they could easily dismiss. They didn't recognize your value or your potential. To them, you were just a temporary presence, something they could walk away from without consequences. But what they didn't understand was that rejecting you wasn't just rejecting a person. It was rejecting the very blessings they were too short-sighted to see. They couldn't have known that you weren't just going to fade into the background. You weren't going to be defined by their opinion of you or the way they treated you. What they saw as a loss, you turned into fuel. You're not just bouncing back, you're soaring. Every time they thought they were out of your league, you were quietly preparing your next move, building something they couldn't even begin to comprehend. Now they're stuck in the ruins of their own poor decisions, wondering why their world isn't aligning the way yours is. The doors they thought would stay open for them are slamming shut, and you're walking through yours with ease because they bet against the wrong person. What they didn't anticipate was your resilience, your growth, and your ability to rise even when they tried to drag you down. Now they watch from the sidelines as you show up and show out, living the success and peace they never thought you'd achieve. And all the while, you're living proof that betting against someone with real potential is never a gamble anyone can afford to lose. The joke's on them. You were always the one destined for greatness, and now they're left wondering how they missed it. Number 10. Their betrayal was an unintentional catalyst for your growth. They thought their betrayal would break you, weaken you, or send you into hiding. But what they didn't know was that their actions did the opposite. The hurt they caused didn't pull you under. It ignited something inside you. It became the very catalyst that propelled you to a level of greatness you might never have reached without that wound. At first, it felt like a punch to the gut. It was painful, raw, and disorienting. But as time went on, you realized it wasn't just a scar to bear. It was fuel. It pushed you to look at yourself in ways you hadn't before, to find strength you didn't even know existed. It forced you to level up, not out of bitterness or revenge, but out of sheer necessity. You had to grow, had to evolve, had to become stronger than you were before. And that's exactly what you did. What they saw as a betrayal was actually a turning point in your journey. It was the moment you decided you wouldn't let anyone or anything hold you back. You dug deeper into your purpose, sharpened your focus, and set your sights higher than ever. You moved forward with a sense of clarity they could never have anticipated. They thought they were pushing you into a corner, but in reality, they pushed you into your power. Now, you're thriving in ways you might have only dreamed of before, and their actions, painful as they were, gave you the fire to get there. They didn't know it then, but they didn't just hurt you. They helped create the version of you that would rise above them all. Number 11. The nasty they chose was a reflection of their own chaos. They gravitated toward the chaos because it felt familiar. It wasn't that the dysfunction was better, it was simply easier for them to align with. Their choices reflected the mess inside them that they never bothered to heal. What they didn't realize was that choosing you would have required them to confront their own brokenness, face their demons, and do the work to grow. And that was something they weren't ready for. You were too grounded for their instability. You didn't just bring peace, you brought the uncomfortable truth that things needed to change. Being with you would have forced them to take accountability for their actions, own up to their past mistakes, and make the tough decisions that real growth demands. But they weren't interested in that. Instead, they chose the path that didn't ask anything of them, the one that allowed them to stay in their comfort zone of excuses and denial. It wasn't about you, it was about them. Their decision to align with dysfunction was just a reflection of where they were mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. They couldn't handle the responsibility of something real because they were too used to the chaos that validated their unresolved issues. Now, they're stuck in the mess they chose, trying to justify their decisions while you move forward, leaving them behind. The truth is, they never truly lost you. They lost themselves in the process. And as long as they continue to choose what's easy over what's right, they'll stay trapped in the very chaos they created. Number 12. They're now outsiders to a story they were meant to be part of. They had a chance to be a part of something extraordinary, but they couldn't see it at the time. They didn't understand that your journey wasn't just about you. It was about the two of you, building something together. They didn't realize they were part of the foundation, the framework of a story that was meant to be shared. But by choosing betrayal, by choosing to walk away, they wrote themselves out of that narrative. Now, while you continue to evolve, grow, and build a story of success and healing, they're stuck in a past chapter that no longer fits. They're outsiders to the very story they should have been the heroes of. The plot has moved forward without them, and no matter how hard they try to rewrite their role, the truth is clear. They're no longer in the picture. You didn't wait for them. You kept moving, even when it was hard, even when the loss stung. And with every step, you've built a new narrative, one that's richer and more fulfilling than anything they could have imagined. The success, the peace, the growth, it's all yours. It's a story they could have been part of if they'd only shown up with the right heart. But they let ego, fear, or selfishness rob them of that chance. Now they're on the outside, watching from a distance, realizing they're not part of the journey anymore. And it's a hard pill to swallow because they can see what they lost. But here's the thing, they can't be part of your story anymore because they chose to leave. And you've kept moving unapologetically, building a future that's all yours. Number 13, they can't access the version of you that exists now. When they walked away, they didn't just close a door, they locked it behind them. What they couldn't see in the moment was that walking out on you wasn't just about losing a connection. It was about losing access to the person you were becoming. The version of you they thought they could discard wasn't the final draft. You were a work in progress, and every day that passed, you grew. You evolved into someone who no longer fits into their world or their narrative. Now, the door they slammed shut no longer opens for them. They don't get to waltz back in thinking everything will be the same. That person they knew, she's long gone. You've transformed into someone unrecognizable to them. And the best part? They're not worthy of knowing this new version of you. The lessons you've learned, the strength you've gained, and the wisdom you've accumulated have made you a person who no longer tolerates anything less than respect and authenticity. What they fail to realize is that they missed their chance to be a part of your journey. They opted out of witnessing your growth, and now that you're thriving, they can only watch from the outside. No matter how badly they might wish to regain what they had, the reality is that version of you they once knew is gone, and they'll never get access to the person you've become. They couldn't see the greatness that was unfolding right in front of them, so now they're left in the past, while you continue to soar. The door is closed, and it's locked with the key of your own transformation, and they'll have to live with the fact that they chose to be left behind. At the end of the day, the ones who betrayed you will come to realize that their choices didn't just alter your path, they altered theirs in ways they could never undo. What they failed to understand is that your worth, your value, and your purpose were never contingent on their approval or loyalty. You weren't just an option they could discard. You were the very catalyst for the growth they never dared to embrace. They thought they were betting against you, but in reality, they were betting against their own future. They chose temporary satisfaction over long-term blessings, chaos over peace, and comfort over growth. And while they now face the consequences of those decisions, you've built a life of purpose, strength, and healing that they can't touch. They'll watch from the sidelines, seeing you thrive in ways they never thought possible. But what stings them the most isn't just that they lost you. It's that they lost the version of themselves they could have been had they chosen differently. They'll always carry the weight of knowing that they could have been part of something bigger, but instead they allowed their own insecurities, dysfunction, and short-sightedness to separate them from what truly mattered. But here's the truth. You don't need their validation to succeed. You don't need their approval to thrive. What's meant for you will always find its way, no matter who walks away. And in the end, your growth, your success, and your peace are the very proof that they made the wrong choice. You were the blessing they couldn't see, and now they'll have to live with the regret of never being worthy of it. Your story continues to unfold, and theirs? It's stuck in the past, wondering what could have been. If this resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that subscribe button to stay connected and join a community that's all about growth, healing, and embracing your worth. Like, comment, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Your support means the world, and every share, like, and comment helps spread this message to those who need it most. Let's keep pushing forward together, because you deserve to be surrounded by people who uplift, not those who tear down. See you in the next one. Stay blessed.